Hello, everybody. How are you? Salam alaikum to all of our friends. Uh, yeah, it's wonderful to be back on the show, but it's very disconcerting what's going on in the world. This tragic news about this kid that was kidnapped and raped and then murdered is very, very disturbing. Um, the same thing happens in America, though. There seem to be very uh, disturbed people, very sick people in every society that will perpetrate crimes against innocent children. It seems to be universal, but there's no excuse for it. It's a horrible, horrible thing. And I hope that the people who committed this horrible crime are found and brought to justice as soon as possible. Yes, Naveed Brohi, from a poor family residing in Nasirabad in Sindh. Yeah, it's always people from the lower classes that suffer the most. Their children seem to be victimized more than others. In the United States, this is also the case. It's really quite unfortunate. Not always, though. I mean, some people from more affluent classes will also be victimized. But amongst the poor, this is very common. I guess because they have less of a voice in society. So they're not well represented, and they're not really cared for. But this is inexcusable. This is a horrible thing. The people who did this are demons. They're absolute demons.
You're absolutely right. Thank you for joining, Brother George Flournoy, once again. And I would just add to what you just said, that usually this happens because these people or that class, unfortunately, to use that word, but people from that lower income, non-influential people, not child or family member of an influential person, or say a politician, or a minister, business shots, these
or even celebrities, right? If they're from a family of celebrities, like a singer or business actor.
So the fact remains that these children, girls, boys, whatever the age group, they are human beings.
Yes,
they are nationals of Pakistan. They are citizens of Pakistan. And absolutely rightly put by you, that usually happens to the people who are not from that influential class. They are not the children of politicians. They are not the children of police officers, not the children of ministers, chief ministers, prime ministers, president. And their only fault, or their only sin, is their being poor. And it's not, again, their fault, obviously, that they are poor, or they live in poor, poverty-stricken regions, or poverty-stricken livelihoods. It's always the responsibility of the state, of the government, to look after the well-being of their people, the well-being of their citizens, giving them enough provisions so they have at least basic needs fulfilled.
Why wasn't there any safeguard against this sort of thing happening? I mean, you would think that, you said he was from a village. Does the village have police that regularly patrol in the village to check to see if anything's wrong, or to be on the alert for some sort of unusual situation?
Well, it's reactive, brother. It's just like you mentioned, it happens everywhere around the globe, or in a lot of other countries as well. So obviously people have their routine, they have their lives. So the child is playing outside, or he's, in his, let's say in a park, in more civilized countries, and children are abducted, kidnapped from those family community parks as well in more
Yes.
modern countries. So obviously, I would say that then comes the law enforcement that reacts to a situation. And then in civilized countries, there is this, there is this assurance that if someone would do such a cruel act, they know the consequences. The problem in countries like Pakistan is, and this is recently, as we have seen case after case, there's a long list of certain cases. Alone in 1 year time, nearly 1.5 years time,
Yes.
there have been more than 1,000 murders. And I was looking at the statistics, which is the official statistics, basically.
These murders of children.
Including murders of children, murders of girls, crime against women. There's a long list of it if we go there. So coming back to the point, see, this keeps on repeating. The reason is because the previous ones have not been caught. There have been no arrests made. And even if they were made in some isolated cases, people were released after they were arrested. Maybe they were not the right people, or even if they were the right people, they got bailed out and so on. So the problem remains, because once someone commits a crime, he or she is not caught, all right, and is not brought to justice, that gives out a message in the society.
Yes.
Okay, and that is that no one cares. I will also not be caught, because that ignorance by police, that ignorance by these law enforcement agencies sends out a message that these matters are being ignored by those law enforcement agencies. So the person with the sick mind can clearly think and can see. Think of the ones who have done it once, they never got caught. They'll do it second time. They don't get caught. They do it third time, and it will just go on.
What causes this sickness, though, this mental disease amongst people, whether it's America or Pakistan or whatever? What causes people to behave like that? They were once children themselves. Do they come from dysfunctional families? Have they been abused sexually or in any other way as children? Do they have some sort of traumatic experience that caused them to deviate from, the behavior of normal people? There must be a reason.
I mean, psychologists can answer that question better than myself, honestly. And at a general understanding, you already mentioned all those reasons. We agree that people may have suffered, from whatever that might be, but still it's not justified that they go ahead if they suffered child abuse themselves, and someone abused them, or there is rampant use of narcotics in our society. You have ice being sold right under the nose of the local police. There's no town of Sindh, of what I know. I don't know about Punjab and Balochistan or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. But in Sindh, throughout Sindh, as a blanket, you find ice. It's a drug.
But that's against
an addictive substance.
The teachings of the Quran. How can people take drugs, and why?
Well, see, we in our earlier discussions, we already spoke about that you drag the education out, you pull it out of the society, and it did not happen overnight. It's been for years, it has been going on. So once that education is gone, the ethics are taken away. So that generation that is being brought up, I'm not saying again all of them, but those who develop this sickness by watching pornography, there is a watch in Pakistan on social media by the government agencies when what you say against the sitting government, but there is no watch over how pornography and child pornography and adult pornography is being floated.
But where does
how it flows throughout the country, through whether it's Facebook, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's internet, emails, whatever.
Does this pornography originate from inside Pakistan, or is it from foreign sources?
Well, I wouldn't really know the insights to that, but I can clearly say that foreign as well as local pornography.
My goodness.
And yeah, both sources. And see, the problem is that when the government is monitoring who's saying what against the president, or who's saying what against the army, or who's saying what against the prime minister, similarly, can they not also monitor why and through what sources the pornography is being, is traveling from one phone to another phone, all right, and then go to the root and stop it. When it comes to that part, there is no control. When it comes to going back to drugs like ice, you have hashish, what we call churs in local language in Pakistan. Churs has been there for decades, but now you have ice. That completely is another destructive substance.
It's a chemical
yes,
substance.
It's another chemical, and it's being sold everywhere. So when it is openly sold, I know it, sitting 10,000 miles away, you heard it, right? Doesn't the police know? They know, George, they know it. They are in fact partners.
Is the ice being imported from other countries, or is it manufactured locally?
Again, same thing. I wouldn't really know how this chemical is developed, whether it's developed within the country or it's being brought, but it is everywhere, in every city, in every small town of Sindh, ice is there. And most of the youngsters are getting caught up with the addiction of ice. And it's just not something hidden, it's open. So the question is, going back to why these kind of incidents take place, why certain things happen. The question is, what is the law enforcement network doing? The local police, don't they know who's selling ice?
Maybe they're getting paid.
Of course, they do. Again, I would put a disclaimer. I'm not saying every single police officer knows it. I'm not implying every single DSP or SP or IG or they know it. I'm not implying that. But majority cases where it is being sold, they are the local SHO, police station SHOs, they get a share out of it. Okay, yeah. And they might say, or some of my listeners might say, well, you just blamed the police. Well, if you want, you can go ahead and have a look, try to buy it and see how easily you can buy it. Okay, that is a proof in itself that how openly, without any fear, the sellers of this chemical substance are operating. They are operating everywhere in Sindh. So ice, this is one major element also that's destroying. And going back to the actual crime situation, this happens, or this has happened throughout the province with different age groups, both genders, boys and girls. And the reason is for its reputation, why it's being repeated. And the reason is simple, George. No one gets caught. Everyone that commits it gets away with it. So you have this addicted, sick, psycho people, and they, when have a combination of drugs, narcotics, alcohol, whatever, and then they have the combination of watching pornography, then obviously they're super frustrated. They have to take out that frustration, vent it out, right? So then they grab any child, any girl in their neighborhood, somewhere along the road, on the street, just random pick up, get out, abuse that child, that victim, for their mental sickness satisfaction. They don't want to leave them alive, because if they're left alive, they will speak.
Now,
And they will, there's a probability of them getting caught, and then they just kill them.
Are these disturbed, sick people, do they have families of their own? Do they have wives and children of their own?
Well, again, once they are caught, we will know.
Yeah.
So far, no one gets caught. No one is, see, that is the case. That's where I would say that the law enforcement agency, the higher ups, the IG police, the DIGs, and the Rangers, that's another law enforcement armed force category that we have, that they have much more power. They as an institution. I would request them, I would appeal Rangers, as well as obviously the police department, the Sindh Police Department, their IG, their chiefs, that please hold your officers accountable. Ask them why this keeps on happening. There's local connivance always. Someone gets arrested, here comes the phone, or from a politician, from a minister, or here comes a subordinate of a political figure who gets the person that's arrested off the record, released, bailed out. Okay, and this gets on, this keeps happening. They should not wait for the day, George, when their own daughter or their own son is raped and killed. They should not wait for that day.
I think perhaps these people in law enforcement think that it will never happen to them because they have a certain status in society. So for poor people that have no status, they have no political power, no social voice, they don't prioritize their issues or their situation. And maybe that's part of the reason that these crimes remain unsolved, because the victims are from poorer backgrounds, and they do, as you said, they don't have political connections or clout. There's no one to stick up for them, so they're expendable. As I mentioned to you earlier this evening, when I was in Beijing, in China, I was in a precinct station in Beijing, not far from my apartment, taking care of some business. You know, you have the registration there for foreigners and all that stuff. And I had a question for them about another issue. And I saw a man who was not from Beijing, who was from a village. He looked like he was from a village in South China. And he was there with his wife. And he had collapsed on the floor in one of the rooms, one of the offices of the station. And she was stroking his chest. It looked like he had heart issues, that he had heart problems. Sitting right next to them at a desk, lounging and just kind of lazing, sitting back, very relaxed, was a police officer, Chinese police officer in Beijing. And I said to the man, "Excuse me, officer, this man is experiencing a medical emergency. He needs medical treatment immediately. Would you please call an ambulance to come pick him up and take him to the hospital?" And his reaction was very sluggish and very, nonchalant. He didn't care. Because as you said, these people from the villages, whether they're in China or in Pakistan or whatever, they don't have political connections or social connections. They're not members of important families. They don't have relatives in the government or in government organizations, so nobody cares about them.
Absolutely, George. And we do have on the other end of the spectrum, I would say, this is one class we are talking about, a common poor citizen of Pakistan that has become the victim of such a crime. And that so far, this happened 3 days ago, so far there are no arrests known to my knowledge, honestly, as we speak. Maybe someone, they may have done something, to catch someone, but so far that there is no update, and the entire town of Nasirabad actually is protesting. They are demanding justice for this Naveed Brohi. Okay.
Yeah.
On the other end is the other example, which is even it's equally shocking. That is that when we are talking about justice for this boy, at the same time, you do see there is an example of a judge himself who himself has not received justice. And that is.
Well, that's the judge who is very upright and very honest, and he didn't play dirty with his colleagues. He didn't play their game, so they ostracized him and pushed him out. Is that what happened?
Exactly, George. This is the example of Mr. Shabir Soomro, his condition, his plight basically is that he is, as a competent judge, has a clear record of all right decisions as per the law, as per the framework, as per jurisprudence. And then throughout his service, while he was acting civil judge, he has no record of a single case that he decided as per law. And if the defendant went for appeal to a higher court, he has no such example where the higher court rebuked or
overturned.
Overturned exactly his decision. It's a clear record. Poor people were, and to this very day, they say prayers for him. They wish him so well because he was a messiah for them when it came to getting justice for the poor people, for the poor class. But then,
what kind of cases was he handling?
He was posted as a civil judge in different villages and towns of Sindh. So he had matters of one particular case that I know of was again of a rape case. There was this poor girl that used to work as a maid at the house of an influential landlord or political figure. And that girl, minor, hardly, I think 12 or 13 years old, was raped by, molested, and eventually raped by that guy. And
by an influential politician, by an influential landlord?
Yes. And then when the matter was brought to the light and it was reported, obviously so many figures came influencing the matter, trying to kind of hide it and let it go. And this guy stood in their face. Totally, he was surrounded by political pressure, by even peer pressure, that he should not, let it escalate. This should be kind of resolved outside the court and whatnot. Well, he sent the child, that minor girl, for medical examination.
Yes.
And fortunately, the doctor, the lady doctor, confirmed that the girl was actually raped. Obviously, by rape, we already mean Zana bil Jabr.
No,
the term for Zana bil Jabr is rape, forced to, have sex.
Did they find samples of or any DNA on the body of the girl to identify the rapist?
Exactly. Yes. So this person, that culprit, was then arrested, and he was sent to jail. But then that guy was influential, so he got himself the facility of going to a hospital where he would have more, he pretended he's ill, he pretended he's traumatized. And at that hospital, he had full facility again. So he, as if he's living in a hotel room. He had phone access. He, he was just relaxed.
He was
so
not
that
guard. There was no guard posted at his room.
Yeah, there were supposedly guards, but those guards are actually there to guard him, not to guard his escape or his freedom, yes or no. So that tells you a lot about the character of this person. Other cases of theft, cases of land grabbing, possession by influential people over the farming lands of poor farmers, so many cases. So those people, all of them love him, okay? And then what happened in a nutshell is this person, when a senior judge with him over the phone was talking to him and found out if the other judge, his co-worker or his peer, has come to the court or how is he, but he used profanity for that judge. So the person, the senior judge that he was speaking to over the phone. So then all he said is that, respectfully, sir, that you should not use curse words, because that other gentleman also, he's your senior judge, he's your junior judge, but he's a competent judge, and it doesn't suit you to use certain abusive cursing words for him. So that actually hurt the ego of that senior judge. And then he, holding grudge against Mr. Ghulam Shabir Soomro, he, over the phone also, he scolded him. And then he didn't do anything visibly and openly. Later on in the annual confidential report, the ACR, that senior judge did not put even this exact matter. He just said that this person, this judge, Ghulam Shabir Soomro, has done some corruption. So he put a little cloudy, murky information there, which was not clear. And then
it was a lie, wasn't it?
Yes. So when the ACR was used as a ground to punish him, that by that time 2 years, more than 2 years had passed from the ACR. So usually the rule is that you use the ACR if you have to use against some officer, within that year's time, not after 2 years, 3 years, when the validity, I mean, the information may be given some value, but the action rule says that you have to take action within a year's time from the annual confidential report.
It seems like the whole system is very corrupt.
Yes. So then this guy...
China, when I was in mainland China, I talked with someone who was affiliated with the judges in Beijing. And he said that if I had a dispute with I was married, then I got a divorce. And my ex-wife, who had a relative in the court system, took control of a property on the coast of Shandong that both of us owned. She got full control over it, even though I paid most of the money for that apartment on the beach. It was very lovely. But anyway, she had a relative working in the court system in Beijing who persuaded the judge to decide in her favor. And then later on, I told a friend of mine about that. He said, well, if you want to reverse the decision, you can do it. But you have to pay XYZ judge a certain amount of money, and he will reverse that decision. I didn't do that. I didn't pay anyone any money. I didn't get involved with that. But over there, if you bribe a judge, then you can get the decision that you want. So it's very corrupt, indeed. I don't know, Xi Jinping is rooting out all of this kind of corruption, supposedly, with his anti-corruption campaigns. But when I was there, it was quite corrupt. The police are corrupt. the police take bribes from brothels, massage parlors, and other, establishments that provide services. And that's part of their income. Because their
Right.
official income is their official salary is very low. But the gray income they get from bribes and from payoffs is very considerable.
Well, in our case, the salaries are not really low for the police officers or law enforcement agency employees. The salaries are great. And still, again, not all, but majority relies on the gray area income. And when you look at it, that what happened then, Mr. Soomro's services were terminated. Okay, because of that complaint. And then when he appealed, every single judge that he went on appealing and putting up his application that this is wrong, the proper investigation should be done. And if there is any evidence, it should be brought to light. What have I done wrong? Is there a corruption? Bring it. Courts. Okay, there should be, obviously, there has to be evidence, right? This is judiciary you're talking about. Yes. So this same judiciary makes sure that no government department, no public department officer ill-treats based on the grudge another employee under his supervision, under his management. Okay, and they make sure, and they say, even if you want to stop someone's promotion, you can do it on a reasonable grounds, but you cannot take their basic rights of the service. Basic right of the service, their salary. Mr. Soomro's salaries have been stopped. It's been years. Since 2011, this person has been suffering, and he had to eventually go and get his license to practice as a lawyer.
Yes.
Okay, so just to make his bread and butter for his family. His children have been deprived of education, okay, because he couldn't afford. To this very day, anyone that is listening, if they want to make sure, are we saying the right thing? Yes or no, they can go ahead and check that his children are without education. They're not going to any school these years. Why not? Because he cannot afford it.
Well, it's unfortunate that in many governments, the supervisory body, the watchdog that is supposed to prevent corruption and mistreatment of peers within a group, that watchdog or that supervisory authority may also be corrupt and receive bribes or other emoluments from interested parties, which completely negates their role as supervisory or, as a supervisory agency.
That's very correct. We have the example of Lahore Supreme Court. Lahore Court set a precedence, and that is that when it comes to the direct party involved, let's say the judges that already gave decision against him, okay, they cannot be part, they should not be listening to his appeal because they have already denied him. So it's like, I did injustice with you, you made an appeal, and when you came with your appeal, it's me again as a judge.
Yeah, there you go.
So this is what the rule was passed by Supreme Court that should not before me, they call it. I don't know these terms in certain detail. A lawyer, all the lawyers that are listening right now, they would know better that not before me is a rule. I mean, it's like I am the one who was your oppressor, and your matter comes to my desk again. Do you think I'll be doing any justice with you this time? Of course not. So that's what happened with Mr. Ghulam Shabir Soomro. And now what we are trying to say is that his basic rights, if you cannot give justice to a judge, a competent judge, a non-corrupt judge,
Yeah.
How your judiciary will provide justice to a common person, to a
Yeah.
common man in your country, if your own judiciary member is deprived of his rights.
It seems like the whole system is corrupt from the top to the bottom, from inside out. And you have to, it requires a lot of reform.
Yes, there might be. We still trust in humanity. There might be some people, might be better judges, might be higher ups that are listening to what we are talking about. This guy is so, I mean, imagine being in his shoes. Just imagine being in his place. He's a father of children, okay, deprived of his salaries, and his children deprived of education. He's so desperate that he has decided even to go ahead now and make a press conference.
Yeah, I think the whole system has to be overhauled. It has to be reformed from the top down. And
what would be your message, sir? What are your remarks in the matter of Mr. Ghulam Shabir Soomro? What would you like to say?
I think that the government in Pakistan has to root out cronyism, factionalism, and other such phenomenon that are plaguing the system. And at the same time, there has to be a supervisory body outside of the system that is a watchdog, that is a body of people, officials that are in no way connected with the individuals being supervised. Because if I'm a corrupt judge and I'm supervising my own actions, obviously I'm not going to turn myself in. But this issue of supervision, whether it's in the US or China or Pakistan, is a very serious issue. And it's important that an unbiased, objective third party does the supervisory work, is assigned the task of supervising the system. If it's supervised from within by the people who are supposed to be supervised, it's not going to work. And I suspect there are lots of factions in the judiciary. And if you don't play along with their game, then you will be ostracized and shunted and discriminated against. And that's precisely what's happened here. I don't know enough to say very much, but I suspect that Justice Soomro did not play along with the other judges who have extensive political connections, connections with wealthy families, connections with landholders, connections with powerful people. He didn't want to play that game. He really wanted to deliver justice in all of the cases that he adjudicated, which ran against their desires and their wishes, because they wanted him to play along and to show favor towards the political and economic interests in the society that were giving them bribes, that were giving them perks. And that's where the problem is. It's a systemic problem. And the whole system has to be overhauled completely. And then you have to have, as I said just now, a supervisory body that is in no way associated with any of the interested parties connected with the judiciary. I would like to convey a message to the Chief Justice of Sindh, the Honorable Gulzar Ahmed Khan, that he should organize a committee of unbiased judges who are completely unattached or unrelated to the affair at hand. They should hear the voice. He should hear the voice. The Chief Justice of Sindh should hear the voice, should heed the voice of Ghulam Shabir Soomro and protect him under the law and afford him every right that he has as a citizen of Pakistan and as a judge in the judiciary.
And as a judge, that's correct. So you're absolutely right. This is, I believe, where we would conclude our discussion today. Let's hope that there is progress on the case of Naveed Brohi, the innocent child that became the victim of such a crime against him. That took his life. His murderers or murderer, whether it's one or more than one, they are brought to justice.
I think perhaps a commission from outside Sindh maybe from the central government, should be organized to go in and do some house cleaning and really clean up the mess, clean up all of these factions, get rid of the cronyism, and also with the police department. They should have an outside committee or supervisory body that has no local ties in Sindh, that's not affiliated with landlords or other interested parties in Sindh. They should come in and do some serious house cleaning. In the words of the famous civil rights leader, Martin Luther King, Jr., whose civil rights movement benefited not only African Americans, but all people of color, all people who are oppressed in American society. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That's his quote. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
That's very correct, sir. Thank you once again for joining. Let's hope people who are affected, they find justice, and people who are protected, they remain protected. Inshallah, Ameen.
This is in accordance with the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the Quran. In the Quran, Muslims are we're taught to champion justice and to protect the poor and the oppressed, and to care for other human beings.
Right.
This is part of our teachings as Muslims.
Right. That's correct.
Okay.
So I once again thank you, Mr. Flournoy. Thanks for your time, and I hope people find justice. I hope that law enforcement agencies, they step up and they really make sure justice is done. There is peace, there is law and order in society, and every citizen, whether he is from the poorest or the richest, of course, they are protected anyway. So every single citizen, male, female, from everywhere, they are protected and they are safeguarded. Thank you so much, and we will meet again.
The slogan that you see on police cars in America, it's not always lived up to, but it says to protect and to serve.
To protect and to serve, yes. Inshallah, Ameen. Ya Ali alayhi salam madad, haq mawjood, Pantan Pak alayhi salam, sada mawjood. Thank you very much, sir. Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you.